Good afternoon. My name is Roland Anglin. I'm the Dean of the Maxine Goodman Levin College of Urban Affairs. And I am totally thrilled that this forum is happening. You know, we're celebrating the Cleveland Asian Festival's 10-year anniversary, along with the National Asian Pacific Islander American Heritage Month. And we're so pleased to partner with these organizations to highlight the important contribution and richness of the diverse communities that we think of as Asian communities. I'm going to get out of the way because I want to learn. There's so much richness here, and we don't often see it. When I became dean, I wanted to change that. We do a lot of economic development impact studies. We study broad processes, but we don't really study the neighborhoods of Cleveland. We need to change that, and this effort is testimony to that, and I thank you for coming out, and I thank our partners. We hope to do this next year and the year after, and in greater depth. So thank you. I'm going to ask Johnny Wu to come up and take the rest of the ceremony.
Hello, everybody. I appreciate you guys taking your time to come out today for this forum discussion. My name is Johnny Wu. I'm one of the local co-founders of the Cleveland Asian Festival, also part of the OCA Cleveland chapter. I'm also a filmmaker, so kind of enjoyed this environment. Today, we are here to celebrate one of the events for the Cleveland Asian Festival, at the same time to celebrate the National Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, which is happened to be May. And we want to use this opportunity to talk about the community we have here with Asian American living in Cleveland, Ohio, and especially also the AsiaTown neighborhood. In the back of the program today, you have a name or listing of all the different panel members. We're going to ask them to come up and take a seat here and join me here on stage. Lisa Wong, Chris Tanaka, we have Angeline Chang, Hashim Dara, and Poo. So they all have microphone mic already, so we're going to ask them to give them a little brief introduction of who they are, and we can go from there. Lisa, you want to start?
I thought I was going to be last. My name is Lisa Wong. I'm the president of OCA Greater Cleveland. It's a local chapter of a national organization. I'm also one of the co-founders of the Cleveland Asian Festival. I'm born and raised here in Cleveland, grew up here. I actually went to Cleveland State University, so I'm an all-around Cleveland girl. Anything else that should I mention?
The festival.
The festival, happening this weekend. So we can talk more about that later.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris Tanaka. Professionally, I anchor evening news Monday through Friday at Channel 19 right down the street. I also serve as a climbing apparatus tackling dummy for my two sons, and a dutiful servant to my beautiful wife. I was actually born in Taipei and have had the joy of living not only in the Far East, but the Middle East. My father worked for Raytheon, so we got to do a lot of traveling when I was young. I consider myself a child of the world, and it's kind of really shaped and formed my perspective on humanity and people. And lo and behold, here I am in Cleveland now almost 3 years and have loved it. So thanks for having me.
Great. As with Chris, I also am a lover of Cleveland. I was born and raised in Indiana, not too far away. But so I'm American-born Asian American, and this is my neighborhood as well. I'm a professor here at Cleveland State University. I have a joint appointment in music and in law. I'm a graduate of Cleveland Marshall College of Law, where I teach. I actually have a class later on to get to, so apologies if I can't stay a little bit later. That's the reason, Johnny, that I might have to leave a little earlier. But I'm a pianist. I oversee the keyboard area and chamber music in the Department of Music, and I am the first female American classical pianist to win a Grammy.
Good. Hello, everyone. My name is Ashim Data. And even though I'm 200 years old, I remember where I was born. I was born in Calcutta, India. but I've lived here in the Cleveland area almost 37 years, but it doesn't seem that long.
Because you're only
And,
20.
well, she picked up on the point that I was going to make. As time passes by, you grow older, which is just the opposite in my case. Because of the sheer energy and the life and the spirit of this town, I seem to have gotten younger and younger and younger. So I will not give you any further details about my chronological being, but I have always been self-employed. I am now professionally retired, but occupationally extremely busy. I put my foot in enormous amount of nonprofit and community activities that go on, and some of which with my cousin here, Johnny. I thoroughly enjoy it. But beyond that, I ran a travel business, international travel business for almost 30 years, and I shut it down about 3-4 years back. But before I went full-time into the travel business, I also worked for the Cuyahoga Community College for a while because I was so addicted to the kind of students that we had at the downtown campus. They were coming from all over downtown Cleveland area, trying to get an education and trying to improve their life, and I got involved with them, and I was there, and it was hard for me to get out of there, but at some point I did, because there were other things that I needed to do. So we'll talk about me and all the others as we evolve. Thank you.
Oh. My name is Annie Yingpu. I'm not like everybody. They have lots background here. And since 1991, I come to the United States, just like, say myself, like a chicken without a head. I even cannot talk English. But now I'm very happy today. Thank you for the opportunity. And my daughter from London stay here today. And my boy do the follow the picture right now. And my editor is here. And since 2002, established for the one Chinese newspaper called Erie Chinese Journal. I was very happy, and this morning I'm talking to my daughter. I say the newspaper make me like a school. I'm learning every day, and for me, fortunately, I can tell you today and this year, I'm coming to the United States for 28 years. I was in China for 28 years. It's really balanced. I told my daughter, I grew up in China, but I'll be more very, be the dogs in the United States. I love two countries, China and America.
All right, thank you guys for giving us your little introduction. And again, we really appreciate the Dean to give us the opportunity to have hosting this panel here with us. A little bit quick about housekeeping. Behind this elevator are the restrooms, and we have some appetizer from Coco Bakery over there. So if you have your stomach needs something to fulfill, go ahead and check it out there. And I'm going to ask some basic questions. If you guys have any additional questions you want to ask, please raise your hand and jump in. Because we want this to be very informal, and then you get to learn about the experiences people have in Cleveland, Ohio. A little background about Cleveland and Asian community. Back in the 1800s, the Chinese American moved here from China and established themselves here. And Cleveland has become a very, very important part of the role for the Chinese community. Whereas, for example, the Old Stone Church was one of the first church in Cleveland, Ohio that provided Sun Yat-sen fundraising opportunity. $5,000 was raised back then in 1800 for him to fight against during the revolutions. And Cleveland also was a time where there's a mayor in Cleveland that prohibited any Chinese to be on the street after the Tong War. So they lock up every Chinese in Cleveland at one point. And that's a sad story in history, but it's something that we learned that through the whole years of being in Cleveland, you get to know the good part and the hard part. At the same time, we evolve and become better and have a better community here. Now we have a huge Asian town. Originally it was called the Chinatown, but then expanded to become Asian town. And over 32,000 Asian Americans living in Cuyahoga County. So that's a huge improvement. And so I have some basic questions here for all of you guys. We probably just, anybody who wants to start talk first, you don't have to stand up because, I want you guys to be comfortable here. So tell us a little bit about your involvement with AsiaTown community or the Asian American community as a whole. So anybody want to start?
Well, I can hear all the voices trying to jump in, so I will just talk. My involvement with AsiaTown goes back about 10 years. And when I say 10 years, those 10 years have to do with the 10th year of the Asian Festival here. I became friends with Johnny, and Johnny invited me to be part of the team that is going to produce the Asian Festival. That was year one. So as I got to know him, I also began to explore the AsiaTown with an eye to a little more detail. And I can tell you from my perspective, I have seen so much happening over the last 10 years in this AsiaTown geographic area. And I'm quite sure some of the credit for that actually goes to this event, the Asian Festival, because it brings people into the area and it opens their eyes to what else is there. And they start looking around and exploring and discover the food, the merchandise and all that. So I think that has prompted and triggered the development of the local economy and a lot of other businesses. So that's where I'll stop now and let others pitch in.
Adding on to what you said, Achim, is the fact that I guess my involvement with AsiaTown is as a loyal supporting consumer, and we have great supporters here who are actually promoting AsiaTown through not only the geographical core of the community, but the experiential core with the Asian Festival. And as to what you said, Achim, it allows people to be drawn into this brick and mortar place where they might not otherwise go to really experience and have this blossoming of intellectual, culinary, cultural, and social experiences that, to me, are still largely unknown to a lot of people in Northeast Ohio. And moving here from, I spent the better part of the last decade living in Hawaii where my wife and my two sons were born, and it is the most culturally and racially diverse state in the country. And coming back, I had this mainland shock where suddenly I have to realize, okay, I got to do my grocery shopping at 3 different grocery stores again instead of one place. But what the Asian Festival does for me in supporting and volunteering and lending, my name and my efforts through my profession is to allow people this experience of what we all share up here, which is this intimate but very strong and very united shared cultural existence that really a lot of people are getting to know.
Yeah, great, Chris, because I feel the same way as well, in that it's very united, it's very inclusive. The sheer name of AsiaTown represents that versus a Chinatown, Little Tokyo, etc. So I think for me that was very surprising, but also wonderful when I moved to Cleveland. I also I spent many years in Europe for my formative training and education, and moved from the East Coast. I was in the New York area. I was teaching at Rutgers University before coming here back to the Midwest. And growing up in Indiana, I expected, nothing happening. It's going to be very difficult to find a Chinese restaurant, let alone real Italian food or something else. And I was totally surprised. One of the things that I did when I was a new faculty member at the music school, I asked students, well, where do you go for this and for that? And so one student said, okay, well, yeah, let's go for dim sum. So, you have dim sum here, great. So I'm expecting to have dim sum New York style where they throw it at you and start yelling and all that type of things. Here it's very, 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 we have all those things, but it's done in a Midwest way, very calm, polite, plentiful, and we have all the resources of a big city, but yet also the feel of a Midwest town. That's what I love about Cleveland. There's so many resources here, and just this inclusive feel that we have here.
As Angeline Chen say, we are a very wonderful city. For me, since 1991 coming here, And we even founded a small Chinatown, which is, we come in China, we love Chinese, like a Chinese food, not like here, Chinese American food. But we are very lucky. Actually, Cleveland, very, very unique because we have like over 100 years Chinatown, which is in Rockwell. And we have a history here. And also, you know, we have the size for the restaurant or size for the grocery store. If you go to New York, the biggest city, still we have more like a wonder for the people who provide everything. This is the one, for me, I do the voice for the Chinese newspaper. Actually, I still remember beginning, Johnny Wu helping me for the first issue, second issue, you know. This is really hard, but certainly it's like after 17 years, I can see the Cleveland, which is the Chinese, the community, also Asian community. For the young generation, you know, they are younger, 15 years older than me, but they are doing the Asian festival, especially for this year. For after 10 years, they're working so hard. Every time they can have 50,000 people. We are not only for the Asian, actually Cleveland, they have 157 different people, different country people here. What is make American rich? Because of the culture. That's the reason I think unique in the community is how important for everyone. Lisa?
Well, like I said, I was born and raised here in Cleveland, and I grew up on the west side of Cleveland. Actually, my parents lived on Rockwell Avenue in apartments above the stores. And actually, there's pictures inside this gallery that you can look at. So I moved out when I was 3 into the west side of Cleveland just so that we can have a yard for the kids to play. I'm the oldest of 5. So I've seen how the community has changed. I mean, my parents always came to AsiaTown to do their grocery shopping. My mom knows where to buy certain things, you know, from which grocery store, and she'll shop at all of them. And we would have all our celebrations in the community, and we would meet friends in the community. And even when I went to Cleveland State, we would, you know, eat there in the community. So I've seen how it's grown over the years. I've heard stories on how my mom used to have to grow her own vegetables. You know, she grew her own bean sprouts. She made her own tofu. She grew all her vegetables in the back. That's why we need the backyard so she can actually grow whatever she wants. She made use of all of the yard. You know, well, the perimeter of the yard. We still got to play in the yard. So, I mean, and now she's very happy that she's able to just go to a grocery store and pick what she needs. So she no longer grows her bean sprouts or makes her own tofu.
So for some of the people who've been here a long time, how has it changed? You said you
How has it
noticed the
changed?
change. How has it changed?
Oh, geez. I mean, when my parents were on Rockwell Avenue, I mean, even the stores there, they were just catering to the Chinese American restaurants. They provided if you want bean sprouts, you got a crate of it, you know? So that's why my mom had to grow her own. It's more, I mean, before the community, I mean, they would live there and they would gather there and they would work their jobs. But it wasn't touristy at all. But then I think over the years, as the community has grown, then it started catering to the Chinese American community, the Asian community. There were restaurants like Bolong that served dim sum. They were one of the first ones that I remember in my generation. I'm sure there are other ones. But they would serve the community. I mean, you can go to Chinese restaurants all over, you know, Ohio, but they're Chinese American restaurants.
Yeah.
They're not the authentic kind. And in AsiaTown, we're lucky that we can experience authentic, you know, cuisine because we have this strong immigrant community here, and we have the workers to work it. And you know, and I think we're benefiting from, you know, this community. Everyone, even though you move out into the suburbs, you still come back to the community to shop there, to eat there, to visit. I mean, it really has grown in the diversity of the community, the residents, as well as the businesses and the stores and the shops and their focus. Now it's a lot more open, more diverse than what it used to be.
Interesting.
I don't know if that answers your question.
I remember
Absolutely. Well, no, because I mean, our experiences tend to be very intimate, and certainly, you know, from the time a lot of AsiaTowns across the country were established in the early parts of the 19th century, right? They were very, very tightly knit neighborhoods. So how do you grow out, and how do the neighborhoods change? And not only how do they become stronger from the inside out, but how does the acceptance and awareness of them from the outside in begin to grow? And you know, here on this panel, the Asian Festival, I think are great resources for doing just that. I'm the relative newcomer to Cleveland, so these are, you know, what I'm wondering about. My questions are, what changes have you noticed from the outside in? Acceptance, awareness, etc.
Angeline, you have something to say first?
Oh, well, I think partly the Asian Festival and the way that the AsiaTown has been growing is one way that people do see it from the outside and can go in. And kudos to Johnny and Lisa for spearheading the festival, because I remember when it first started, it was an idea, and now it's really grown to something people expect year after year after year, and it's really showcased so many different cultures, and also great appreciation for what we have here in Cleveland. But I do have a funny story to share, and when Lisa was mentioning about how it was difficult to get authentic food and whatnot, when I first came to Cleveland, here I am working at Cleveland State University, not too far from AsiaTown. I would be late nights, and I would call up, I would go to a restaurant, and I would want to get my chicken chow mein combo menu, platter with egg rolls and and fortune cookies, the typical Chinese American style food. And so then this is my thing, because I love the vegetables, so I would have it each time, and every time I go, then the owner would say, well, don't you have something really Chinese for a change, and gave me the Chinese menu. It's like, well, no, I really like this chicken chow mein combo. So I decided, okay, so I don't get hassled, I'll just call in an order. Somehow she recognized who I was. When I came in to pick it up, it's like, oh, she gave me something totally different. And for me, it was actually great. I eat everything, but the thing is, for me, it was a revelation too. It's like, well, this is great stuff. It doesn't have to be limited to that special combo platter. And as an Asian American, it's like, okay, yeah, there's great stuff here, and we really have the authentic cuisine here that we can really enjoy. Besides just dim sum, but like Szechuan cooking, and then the homemade Cantonese types, Shanghainese, etc. So I think, in a way, for me, that was an experience of how from the outside in, I was, taken with, there are some other things for me to actually open my eyes to as well.
Actually, Lisa just mentioned for the mother doing the vegetable in the garden. But I just wonder, when we come in the Chinese grocery store, they are so small. Look right now, they are all over like 30,000 square feet. The more variety, all the kind of different food. You walk into the supermarket, it's really now looking like only Asian people right now go to the, shop in the store. They put a lot different stuff. Also, I just wondering, eating, it's really like a food. It's not for Asian people, actually for everyone. We try to the garlic, right? Like India food, we try to eat the food. Actually, food, it's really make people happy. They have the movie called Food Make Happy.
I think so. Right?
Okay. This is life. This is like everybody. It's really not like we are the Asian. We face like an Asian. I think for me, it's really like a global, which is we need to accept each one for no matter the culture, no matter the food. It's really fun for lifetime.
Yeah. Ashwin, anything to contribute?
Well, there is so much actually, but I am a little different from her and Angeline and Lisa.
I think we all are very different from each other.
We are?
We are.
Wow.
Oh, it's all backwards here.
Never quite realized that. Because I actually do not recall venturing into Chinatown up until about 10 years back.
AsiaTown.
I was testing to see if anybody catches me.
Okay.
So what happened was, if we wanted to have Chinese food, not Asian food, Chinese food, well, I lived in the east side, in the Cleveland Heights area most of my life, and we would go out to either to Coventry or to Beechwood, because there were some Chinese restaurants that were known for their taste, and so we would go there. But once I had this discovery of the taste of Chinese food in the AsiaTown area, I can honestly say that I haven't gone back to all the other restaurants that I used to visit prior to my discovery of AsiaTown. And let me also say that for many people of Indian origin, well, one of the things is here, for many communities, there is sometimes a tendency to try and see if they can all cluster together in one neighborhood or something. In the case of the Indian Americans, it's kind of different. They never even looked consciously to see where their friends are living, if I can find a house next to them or whatever. They were more driven by the school system and the cost of housing and how far one would have to drive to get to work. And one funny thing that I was told many years ago by an Indian friend of mine, he said, you know, smart Indians, they will always live on the east side, because if you live on the west side, you are going downtown to work with the sun in your eyes. And then at the end of the day, you're going home with the sun in your eyes. Who is that foolish? So find a home in the east side. So, but that leads me to say that most of the people, they're scattered all over Greater Cleveland. There is not one neighborhood that sees a concentration of Indians. But at the same time, there used to be just one or two Indian grocery stores. One was in Cleveland Heights, and there was another one, I believe, North Olmsted, somewhere in that area. So everybody had to go there to buy whatever their Indian grocery needs were. Now, similarly, just as Chinese cuisine has been discovered and appreciated by a greater number of people, the same thing has happened with Indian food. And as a result of that, in recognition of the need, the market has grown, and there are probably about 10, 12 grocery stores in the Greater Cleveland area. And that aside, the number of restaurants, when I came into the area back in the early 80s, there was just 2, and now there are about 14 or 18 like that. So this is, I sometimes wonder why nobody has discovered AsiaTown in terms of setting up Indian shops, because obviously it's AsiaTown, Asians gather around AsiaTowns, but what is it that doesn't draw the Indians, at least the Indian business people, to set up businesses here? I think it is their loss, because it'll also open up their doors to so many other people who will discover Indian cuisine and all the other Indian material that are attractive and appreciated by many other people, and they can find them in a centralized location like AsiaTown. The Indian community here is actually the largest Asian community. So there are about 36,000 people living in this area. I think I'm quite sure that if they came into AsiaTown and discover the taste and beauty of things that are Asian, they will also realize that there is a market for them in this area, and they can set up businesses where they can channel their merchandise and food out to a whole lot of other people where the market will grow for them. I hope that it happens sometime in the near future. And last thing I want to say is, with the ongoing Asian festival that's been going on for now, going to be 10 years, those 2 stages there and the food court, they invite Indian performers and they invite Indian food vendors. And hopefully they will recognize the opportunity that exists in this area, and then they'll think about opening up businesses in the vicinity.
Good, thank you. So a little bit about the AsiaTown, Asia Plaza. Before the Cleveland Asian Festival was available, the only kind of party we have at AsiaTown was the Chinese Lunar New Year celebration. And every year in the past, Liwa does the biggest event over there. Lisa and I, we usually help host the event. They have more than 400, 700 people show up there to eat dinner at a very family-style dinner with a bunch of different performances. I remember beside them, we have magician shows, we have face-changing performances, martial arts inside Liwa performing. So all this kind of thing happening. It was only during January, February of each year, which is kind of cold and snowy and hard to get there when you don't want to travel out of your home. But then, because of that, we realized there's a potential to expand, to invite more people. The majority of people that go to those kind of dinner are non-Asian. We're talking about maybe 60% and up are non-Asian people participating because they love the Asian cuisine so much. They want to experience the family-style dinner. Asian Festival have helped engage that opportunity to be more than just one restaurant, one event, one period event. It becomes something more than we can do every year. And because of the Asian Festival, for another example would be the Cleveland Flea Market. They moved from the Slovenian National Center to AsiaTown. We have the Junior League for Women organization moved from Cleveland Heights all the way to AsiaTown. So the opportunity of vibrantness is there. Miga, for example, is another restaurant, Korean restaurant who opened up in the AsiaTown Center after Asian Festival. And we recently have the new restaurant called Bao Bao Waffle. Yes. They were at the Cleveland Asian Festival, and they've decided to say, let's stay in Cleveland, let's open up in AsiaTown, let's have a business here and see how it goes. And they got a lot of publicity this whole week. So this is a good thing. Now let's talk about a little bit more depressing, challenging. I'm going off the script because you guys probably already answered everything here already, so I'm just going to go around to ask this question. For your personal experience, what were the challenges when you first moved to Cleveland and experiencing the Asian community? Anybody want to start?
I'll take that one. I think, as I had mentioned earlier, moving back to the mainland United States, regardless if it's Cleveland, my wife and I, we spent almost a decade in Denver, and it was very similar in so much as you have a large swath of the population that are Caucasian, African American, Hispanic, but a far smaller percentage that is Asian. And so what that does is, I don't know if it creates a voicelessness, but the identity of the community is smaller. And in everyday life, what does that mean? We are interacting with people who have different customs, different social norms, different cultural values, and different heritage. I made the joke, but I was entirely serious, that your shopping is scattershot. You got to go here if you want one cuisine, you got to go here if you want the other. And it's not all in one place. I remember growing up, my friends used to play, what did Chris have for dinner? Because, right? Because they were my buddies, and it was all in good fun. But I grew up in, at least when I moved to the United States, southern New Hampshire, where it was even more disparate and more homogenous, the population there. So I think for us, the challenge was coming back to, regardless of if it was Cleveland or Denver or any other place, where we were now slotting into a community where we really had to kind of find our niche. And it's great to have that central location of AsiaTown, but more so to be embraced by the people on this panel and really kind of get involved was a great way to kind of assimilate and get back into a personal kind of compass of equilibrium. But that's always been the challenge. And being Hapa or half Asian, for me, a lot of times when I went to Boston College for undergrad, there was an association, AHANA, which they kind of lumped all of the non-white people into and said, here's your group. But I didn't even fit into that so well because I wasn't entirely Asian. So for a lot of 100% Asian people, I wasn't Asian enough. And certainly I'm not when I go to Japan. And all of my Caucasian friends would let me know that I wasn't Caucasian enough. So it's all kind of about finding your niche as you grow up, as you become an adult, an individual, a family person. And the challenges are different in your life stage, but they all have this similar vein. Who are you? Where do you fit in? Who are the people you belong with? And how do you express yourself within that community? I've been very fortunate in Cleveland to meet the people I have, and it's been a flowering, it's been a blossoming, but the challenge was that, finding all that stuff.
Okay. Well, I didn't come here, I was born here, so I grew up on the west side of Cleveland, and it was a very different experience. It was a very depressing experience. We were the only minority in the neighborhood. We lived in a heavily Caucasian neighborhood, and in school, I would just not say anything. I would not draw attention to myself, because if I did, then all the chants would start, and the name calling, and just all that. So to avoid that, I was I took to myself. I didn't say anything. I actually didn't join clubs until senior year in high school, and I think this is my last chance, So, I mean, it's different growing up with that kind of experience, but it also helps me to want to do better. I want better for my kids. So I'm hoping that with things like the Cleveland Asian Festival, that we're promoting the culture, we're showcasing the joys of the community, that people will learn about the culture and be more accepting of everyone.
Anybody else want to chime in?
Actually, now it's just like you say, after the promoted for Chinese or for the Asian culture, the 31 Penn Avenue, that before I think they are manufacturing or somehow, now they are changing for the apartment. You can see 31 Street Penn Avenue in St. Clair. They are every night is very packed. That means the apartment they just get in, like you see free market, because everything depends on the opportunity. If opportunity and the more, the people coming and the more things they can do, of course they coming here. I was talking to my boy, and I did my anniversary in the flats called fashionable, what's it called, Anna? What is the restaurant? And they, in the beginning, they even not have the people. But my boy just tell me right now, Friday, even you cannot get in, people with the people, which is always food, entertaining, and a good opportunity, work. This is more important for the people coming to no matter the Asian town or summer town. And this is the more important.
In general, I think an older person as opposed to a younger person have different experiences in blending with the community. I think older people, they have already created their own personality or whatever, and there is a question of acceptance by those who are also older people. And when I say older, I don't necessarily mean who's 100 years old like me. I'm talking about those who are maybe 30 and up, But the interesting part is when the kids who are born here and they go to school, and there are 15 different kinds of ethnicities all within one classroom, there is no problem, there is no issue. They become friends based on other things, not based on the color of somebody's skin or how they speak or what their speech is like, any of those things. So immigrants, it's a different experience as opposed to those who are born and raised here. But I have to say that in spite of what I just said, when I moved into this area, and there was some apprehension of how I would be accepted, how long would it take me to become a part of the greater society, I was pleasantly surprised that if I went through any doorway, as soon as I crossed the threshold, there was that I could sense that I had that expression of apprehension on my face. But 10 minutes or an hour later when I came back out after having met whoever I was going to meet, I could sense that there was a smile on my face because I realized that I'm part of them. I've been accepted. So there were no issues whatsoever. So when we talk about, the challenges that we may have faced when we first moved into the area, I think it depends, it varies from person to person. And to some people, it is not a challenge, and to some people, it is a challenge. Sometimes, I guess, how we speak, that makes a little difference to whoever is listening to us or looking at us, and they decide whether to open up to us or not open up to us and have some suspicion about who we are. And one of the benefits of having a neighborhood like AsiaTown is that we all know that we are from somewhere else. So there is no challenge of acceptance. Everyone is kind of looking at each other with an ease and acceptability and respect. And I think that is also a big advantage of having this kind of a neighborhood.
Angelini, so I can add an extra question for this. Since you also were one of the first Asian American women winning the Grammy, how that impacted in you in the sense of other people looking at you differently?
Well, I'm not sure. I think I would have to pose the question to other people, really.
Okay.
But I would have to say that with Assam, that I think it's a challenge for everybody, no matter what your background is. Whether you're Asian, non-Asian, Caucasian, African American, whatever it might be, it's a challenge. And I think although Cleveland is on the rise, and I think it's because of the economic development, the value of culture, arts and culture in this community, which is amazing, just amazing. I think that's one reason that we really are a city on the rise, but there's so much more work to do, so much more. And I think part of this is the Asian community having something like not just AsiaTown, but also the festivals, so that people can feel free to get a glimpse of what else is out there. I think a lot of people might be afraid to venture into certain areas because they feel like it's an unknown. Mm-hmm. I remember when I first moved to town too, I was told that, I lived on the east side as well, because the sun supposedly gets in your eyes if you're heading west after work. But since then, I've moved west because I don't get enough sun here. I think you all know what I mean. But
thank you.
But I think there are a lot of challenges. When I lived in Europe, I felt that Europeans understood what Americans were more than what I grew up with, like what Lisa had expressed. There was no question in their mind, oh, you're from America? Oh, yeah, you're American. Here it's like, well, you get certain questions like, well, when you're going back home? It's like, tonight? Those type of things. Or I have had, even recently, some unfortunate experience with some visitors from an Asian country, taking them to the airport, and because they were speaking a different language, they were being mocked at by an unfortunate airport employees. And so that was very disturbing to me, very disturbing in a town that I really love. And so I think there's so much more work that we have to do, and the only way to do that is to have awareness. Everybody has to have awareness, and I'm not saying that you have to have immediate respect, but there's something to learn and to appreciate from everybody that we have here. And not, we're so fortunate. We have so many different cultures in this city, so many resources. And I do feel that people aren't taking full advantage of that resource. When I grew up in Indiana, there really wasn't much. I mean, like Chris had mentioned, some of the places that we've been, you can't find that. Here, you can actually find it. And so, again, I think it's the work that we've been doing to build that platform, that possibility for others to, the cultural gardens, for example. I was very impressed. I mean, there's almost about 40-ish different cultures in the international gardens there. And it's unheard of in a lot of Midwest cities. So, yeah, I hope everybody joins in to make more possible and make us really be a city that's not just on the rise, but really something even stronger than it is today.
I think I want to add to what you just said, that we ourselves, if we are not raised in this community, perhaps we also have a responsibility to open ourselves up and then go out. When long time ago, I was somebody had told me that remember, you come across another person coming from the other side. He or she is waiting for you to say hello first, and I think there is some merit to that. You know, if we are all waiting for the other person to open up, then probably nobody will open up. And that would be an unfortunate, you know, consequence. So we should, and you know, festivals like this, they are very important in opening up and letting others in, so that they are exposed to who the hosting cultures are. So if we choose to sort of hold ourselves within ourselves, I don't think it'll help in any way.
Agreed. Agreed.
So anybody here in the audience have some question for yes?
I'm new to Cleveland also, and when I travel the leadership circles, I don't see any Asians. Am I missing something?
These are probably can be answered. It's what we call the glass ceiling effect, where most of the leadership positions are non. You don't find lots of Asian American faces on there.
Not at all. I mean, in every community, there are groups of leaders that are consulted.
Right.
I don't see those leaders being Asian. So
There's a lot. In the workplace, there's because of the glass ceiling effect, whereas a majority of jobs are given to the peers who are of the same color, and that happens a lot. We got happening here. Fortunately, in Brownsville, we have a very, very good mayor. He's sitting right there.
Sit over there. I just want to
Mayor Ron
mention,
Falcone. He's Asian, and he's representing in the very bigger perspective of our community. I think, Lisa, do you want to chime in a little bit more about that?
So you're asking why there aren't many Asians in certain roundtables in leadership?
am I missing anything? Maybe it's my narratives, but when I sit at the economic development table, I don't see Asian Americans. I see African Americans, I see Caucasian, and the odd Hispanic, but I never see Asian.
Now, posing the question back to you, do you think it's a matter of the organizers, the entity, for reaching out to folks who would be qualified to enter that, or do you think it's because Asians aren't stepping up? I tend to think it's the first versus the latter, personally. I've served on different committees and roles by volunteering, but sometimes I believe that it's because these circles aren't overlapping. Perhaps one entity is not aware of who to even go to.
We're going to go with the gentleman first.
As an organization, are you in touch with how many various ethnicities of Asians there are in the Cleveland community? And how do they all interact and get along?
The community is very, very diverse here. There is a publication. They took census data. Advancing Justice created a book. It's specifically about on the Midwest. I do have a link for that I could probably share with you. It breaks down some of the different cultures and then ethnicities. But we also have resources here in Cleveland. ClevelandPeople.com has a section on their webpage for every ethnicity they could find in Cleveland. A lot of the minority cultures and ethnicities are listed there. So that is a really good resource. You can probably check there too. And that's a local resources there that we have.
Sorry.
My question is about preserving language for the next generation. I sit on a board of one of two Mandarin schools in the city of Cleveland, and there's a huge demand. I know that, I see it. What is the Asian community doing to preserve languages generations?
We have several schools here in Cleveland. I just found out yesterday, was it yesterday, that we spoke to 2 days ago, Tuesday, about there is Besides the typical schools that we have in Cleveland that teach Chinese and English to preserve the language for Chinese community, Asian community, Chinese American community, there's also a small little 9 family groups in Beechwood that actually gather together and teach each other kids in preserving the languages, which is kind of surprising to me because I never heard about that before. But Lisa, you can list all different schools here,
I think
right?
there's about 4 Chinese language schools here. There's
the
Solon
largest
Chinese
in the
School,
Solon, yeah, the
Westlake
Solon.
Chinese School, and there's the Great Wall Enrichment Center,
Yeah.
and then there's the Chinese Academy of Cleveland in Cleveland Heights.
Yeah.
But there's also, I know that there's a Japanese language school, but their primary goal is to keep Japanese citizens, the students, educated so that when they return to Japan, they're not behind. So it's very, very intense.
They also have the Korea school.
Korea school,
in
yes.
the
They also have
Asian
a Korea
town, the
school
city.
here.
Yeah, they all doing like a Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
You know, just to mention that one, like so many American people, they adopt Chinese kids. Yeah, they are just, they take the group. They are, you know, working for the library. They just send the kids to do the Chinese. It's really touching me because the parents of America, they say, you know, when they grew up, I want they found the parents. I don't want they cannot speak, you know, the native language. This is, you know, if you want all the kind of information, I can provide it for you after that.
There's also a lot of generational attitudes that play into whether or not the native tongue is passed down. And certainly, you know, different countries have different customs. I know Japanese, it's more about assimilating than preservation in a lot of cases. And so my mother taught us when we were young, but she also was very quick to assimilate into American culture. And I think if you look at that macrocosmically and you spread it out, you know, a lot of populations tend to Japanese try to assimilate and spread out, whereas, you know, certainly the term they use in Hawaii is hui, to hui together. A lot of Chinese communities hui together there, right? And there's a strength in numbers, and there was this wheel of keeping the strength of the culture, of the language, etc. So I think if you look, if you parse it down and you boil it down into different national groups, you'll find, and certainly generational, you'll find different attitudes towards that preservation of the mother tongue.
Thank you.
But I think that is a good question, because even though the responses have been, yeah, there's schools going on and teaching with Chinese in particular, it's a huge challenge because it's not a single dialect.
Yeah.
There are all these many dialects, and so many of the schools that have been mentioned are Mandarin speaking. So I wouldn't say that the issue is resolved and addressed from that perspective. So it's a great question. I don't know if anyone has an answer.
Well, the way that my father taught me to learn Chinese was to basically, every time I come back home, I had to write 3 pages to 5 pages of Chinese characters. I can't get it out of that. If I try to get out of the place, go out to play, he would just grab me from back and put me in front of the desk and say, right. I have a dusty stick there ready to hit me if I don't do my job. Back then, you know, my parents said, hit you, no problem, but we can't do that anymore, right? So anyway, that's my history. So lady in red?
Yes, my name is Renee Lagon. I'm the director of the Minority Business Assistance Center for the state of Ohio. My question is more from an entrepreneurial perspective. Where do you see, and I think you touched on it a little bit, where do you see the opportunities from your vantage point for the Asian community to receive the support and development of the business to expand and grow? Where are those opportunities? You know, in some communities, it's more access to capital, is the need of credit repair, understanding how banks interact in certain communities. Well, what are your challenges?
You know, I have to make this observation, and sometimes it makes me feel a little awkward to have to say this. When we talk about Asians, for whatever reasons that I may not have the answer to, the Indians do not fall in that category of identification. Yes, geographically, they are South Asians, but for all the other reasons, I don't know. I think it has something to do with the fact that the Indian immigration into the United States generally started in the 60s, and it picked up late 60s, 70s when I think under President Johnson there were changes in the immigration law. He opened up because there was a great deal of need for engineers, doctors, educators. So, you know, the doors were open, immigration became a lot easier, and Indians drove in large quantities. However, it must be kept in mind that those who came, they were thousands, but not millions. Now, in a country which now has probably 1.3 billion people, the thousands that came, they were actually the cream of the crop. They were the brightest of the brightest. And that's why they had the opportunity here, they were invited to come here, and then they came here. So once they came here and they settled down, their growth was sort of a little natural because they came with the degrees, the high degrees and the education and all that. And so they rose up the ranks and they reached a reasonably high position in their fields of endeavor. And that's why when Dean was asking about not seeing too many Asians or even any Asians in some of these places that you're part of, I think you might be seeing some Indians there though. Is that true?
Yes. But mainly when we're talking about technology, not when we're talking about how political life is conducted. That's my concern.
Okay, I didn't quite catch that, but you're absolutely right that there is a sort of, well, I don't know how to quite describe it. Indians in general, and I'm talking about Indians only, I'm not taking all Asians here, they tend not to get too involved in politics. And I have never understood that because it is part of their life. They have all settled here, they have taken citizenship. Some of them don't even go and vote. I know many people who don't even go and vote. And it's very disturbing. I, on my part, have done a lot to encourage people and to educate people that it is an absolute necessity for your future generations, for your children, your grandchildren, that you take part in the process. And there are many who still don't. So as far as politics is concerned, I can quite understand why you don't see too many. There are a few that are getting more involved now. There were a couple of Indians who were part of the state house, and then there's somebody from the Cincinnati area, I believe, who has just got into the state senate. I was hearing about him on the radio this morning. So there's just a handful, maybe 2 or 3 here and there. But there is still that reservation in them that they don't like to get involved. But I'll tell you one other thing though. There are some who are actually writing big checks to their chosen candidates. That I can tell you.
Okay. And getting back to your question, you're asking about what the challenges are for minority business owners in the Asian community to participate in programs that you have?
Or just to advance, what are some of the challenges?
The challenges? Okay, so
starting businesses or trying to get it off the ground. What are some of those challenges? And
all right.
just to understand that, because we do have resources. But,
right. Yes.
Understanding what those are to make the appropriate match has been a challenge for
For the Chinese American community, mostly for the immigrant community, language barriers, knowledge about where to get information, how to get information, and who's going to help them because they may doubt, their language skills. So I think that if you, had people in your office that spoke their languages, it'd be easier for them to get the information. You also have to build trust. You have to build trust with the business owners. So I learned that in working with the Asian community and the Chinese community specifically, that you have to build up that relationship before you can actually talk business, because they have to trust you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Before I forget, I apologize to you because at some point I moved away from what your original question was.
Don't worry.
But that happens, when you get to my age, it happens, But I just want to clarify, people that I talk with, they are not small business people, okay? And for most of those people, it's because of their training and their education and all that, when they become entrepreneurs, they set up businesses. I don't believe they run into significant issues of financing and all of that. Now, if I talked with the small businesses, those who set up shops, like grocery store, or maybe a small restaurant or something, I think in most cases they come into that field with some saved up family money, and that's why they don't even go out and look for money. But I think I've just found something interesting to do for the rest of my life. I should talk to the small business people and see whether they know that there are resources available from state and county and many other sources.
Yeah, just actually, I was in Washington, D.C. I met the one lady. She was, working for the warehouse. That time she do the education. She said she had $300 million for the language, each different. Like a Spanish, like a Chinese, or like a Japanese. $300 million. Even it's really like Asian people provide like a grant, just like you mentioned, because we don't know how can get that. Just everything's the back, which is education. We don't kind of like the people to support you, to help you. I just want to tell you, recently I was in Pittsburgh, and I met the one lady. She's 81 years old. She found, we are coming from Shanghai, which is, she come to the United States since 1962. She just asked me, do you have the money or do you want the money? I think, of course I want the money. Doing the newspaper, almost like a burner for the money every month. She said, I will try to help you to get a grant. This is like the first time the people ask me, do you want the money? But she knows she can build for library. She got the money for $400 million, half for the American government, half for the private fund. But she knows how to get the money. But for me, I don't know. That's why I'm very happy. I will talking to you later.
Well, next time somebody tells you, offers you money,
Yeah.
think about me too.
Oh, okay.
Lisa, you want to?
Well, one more thing. So at the Cleveland Asian Festival, we do have a world marketplace, and we have over 100 exhibitors. This year, we actually have a lot of, I would say, new startups or potential startups that you should talk to. Because they're right.
A lot of the conversation has been about the economics of AsiaTown, as well as the assimilation that you had coming to Cleveland and into AsiaTown. I know that there's quite a few Asian residents living in AsiaTown, and my question is, what are some of the needs that community has? I know it's getting older, the population's getting older. It appears to be like we've seen, because we work in AsiaTown, but what are some of the needs of the community, the residents of the community?
Medical should be one for sure, isn't it? I mean, healthcare,
Okay.
transportation, how to get to a doctor's office or getting treatment. All of those things should be serious needs. Now, when you say people living in AsiaTown, are you talking about apartments or?
No, there's a lot of single-family residences.
Okay.
I don't know if they're single-family. I mean, we've been in a few, and there's a lot of people that live in those. The Asian families, they still take care of their elders, and
Yeah,
so you
absolutely.
have 2-3 generations within the house.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of single-family residences that there are people, and I think it's important
think one of the challenge needs that we're going to have in the Asian community is the language barrier. Yeah. You have too many different Asian ethnic groups, and so which means that, for example, we have the refugees, the groups. We also have Hmong, we have Vietnamese, we have Korean, Japanese. We have what else?
Or even in the Chinese community, there's the Cantonese speaking.
Yeah.
There's
so many different dialects and languages that if you had to help all of them, you're going to have to make probably an encyclopedia of different languages.
Do they have trouble helping themselves because of those different?
That's the reason why they had the younger generation. The senior generation will request one of the kids or a grandson to take them to different places and be the translators. I think Queen a couple of years ago asked us to help out. There was a lady who doesn't speak any Chinese, so she asked us to call people we know that can speak Chinese for her, and because she had to go to court. So this kind of the language barrier is happening a lot, and sometimes they'll say we need somebody who speaks Hmong language, which is what? I don't even know.
Wow. Yeah, we don't
its
know.
own language.
Yeah, it's a Hmong.
Yeah. Or another dialect, a Vietnamese dialect that we don't, or Shanghainese, that we don't even know how to speak that. She does, but I don't. But so those kind of language barriers there, and it's hard to pinpoint. There's one time many years ago, in the Ward 7, they were talk about having a 24 hours translator service, where a person can call the number and seek for a person can speak the language to help out. I don't think that materialized because we couldn't figure out how to pull everybody together to stay on the line to do so. Because now you had to have one person to answer the phone call and then direct the person to different channels. So I only speak Mandarin and Spanish. She can speak Chinese, Mandarin, and Shanghainese.
Yeah.
Actually, you speak Indian? Hindu?
Yes, I do speak. There are 23 different and distinct languages in India.
Yeah, wow.
So that's another challenge.
I speak only I speak actually 3 of them, and I'm including English in one of those 3 languages, because English is a major language in India too. But I speak Bengali and I speak Hindi, yes.
Angeline?
I speak French, Mandarin, English.
There you go. Now you do have a few. Chris?
I speak more Spanish than Japanese.
Oh, wow.
Really?
And I only speak a little bit of Toy San. I can understand a little bit of Cantonese, and I know when someone's trying to speak Mandarin to me because I don't know what they're saying.
So you can see that's a barrier problem we have challenge with. Language is the number one that we have so far.
So also, I don't know if you know about Asian Services in Action. It's a social service agency that's located on Perkins. They do have an interpretation service and translation services. They also have a weekend Chinese school, I think, which is a very small. They have an after-school program, so they do that. So that's another. There's many different niches for language schools, and I think you're referring to Gala, who does the Mandarin immersion and Spanish immersion, which is a growing trend across the nation.
Dean?
This is a question for Chris, and it's not an indictment. Do you think the media needs to do more to tell stories, the Asian American stories in Cleveland, or is there some market reason why that's not going to happen?
I would say absolutely, sure, yeah. And I could point the finger at myself, and my daily struggle is even trying, let me tell you a true story, is trying to get my own station to supply coverage for the Cleveland Asian Festival, which I'm going to be volunteering for, and I'm the main anchor of my station. It's an uphill climb because my bosses, multi-letters there, are saying, what's the hook, right? What's the story? It doesn't have to be crimey, but is who's going to care about this, right? And so that's the challenge of a daily struggle of a news organization is you're combating journalistic ideals with getting that number and pulling eyes in and pulling ears. Fortunately enough, I was like, well, let's just tie it to weather because everyone cares about the weather. So whenever we mention the weather for the weekend, we're mentioning the Cleveland Asian Festival and where it is, and it's free, and go there and get good food. But absolutely. But on a deeper level, on a more experiential level, on a level that matters more, this year it was a failure. I didn't get to have Johnny Arachim into the studio to talk about it for 5 minutes on our morning show because it was shot down. So yeah, there's always a greater need, and I'm always looking for an angle in. The Centennial Plaza is going to have a groundbreaking on MLK Drive on June 11th at 6 o'clock. Fantastic. That's a way to get some cultural news injected into our newscast for that night, and we'll be sure to be there. But there always has to be that hook, and that's the eternal struggle of being in the media.
I sit with the WKYZ advisory board. Last year we were very popular, very active in the sense that every couple of months we have a meeting, and all the different minority groups in Cleveland, Ohio get together and talk about what's going on in Cleveland. And the Channel 3 will go out and cover the stories. Somehow, one of the organizer, the first lady, she left the station, so everything died off right now.
Yeah. Oh,
So they admitted to me, they said, unfortunately, we can't do anything right now because the person who runs the show, she's no longer with us. We just don't have the energy to do so. The resource is not available. That's what they said. But it's also probably because of us. I have experienced this because I'm always in the media and always talking about stuff. I have newspaper, Cleveland something, and a couple other places. They refuse to talk to me because I'm always the person they talk to. They want to see more variety of faces in front of the camera. And then this is something that we as Asian Americans need to build is leadership. We also need to build people that can be in front of the camera and talk about Asian festival. Unfortunately, right now, it's only a few of us can do that. So then you get a newspaper say, I don't want to talk to you because I want to talk to Lisa. And that happened recently because they see my face all the time. They don't want to hear from my voice anymore. They want to hear somebody's voice. And we felt like this week, Lisa said it. We go to Channel 3, Channel 5, Channel 43, Channel 19 to talk about Asian festival. Everybody sees our faces. And it's so feel like we don't have enough leadership in the community to go out there and talk more about the Asian festival. So that's another thing we need to do is building out the leadership.
And it spans industries too. It's not just media or maybe it's access to economic development and freeing up capital. It's a numbers game, right? What is the investment in whatever it is that you have? What's the impact? What are the numbers served and what's the return on the investment? And when you have those factors and you slot in whatever it is you do or whatever you have to offer, is your service, product, or investment meeting its end goal with the return? And in the media, it's the number of eyes reached, the number of people who care. In economic development, maybe it's, how much of this population are we serving? How many people can $1 impact? And if you have a greater community as opposed to a smaller community, maybe you go to that community. It's a numbers game, and it's across all swaths of business and industry, and that's what a relatively small community like the Asian community in Northeast Ohio really has to unlock, is how can we be bigger, how can we be grander, how can we be greater, and make our voices heard.
Well, doesn't the fact that the rate of growth in the Asian community in Cleveland outpaces all other groups make a difference? Not in absolute numbers, but certainly the rate of growth.
It's slowly
Rate
getting
is
there.
good.
Yeah, I
It's
just
slowly
say
getting there.
it's slow, but
Yeah,
it's still
it's slowly getting there. This year we have Cleveland Orchestra reaching out to us to say, we want to reach out to the Asian community. We don't know how to reach out to them before. We want to do better for that. Cleveland Museum of Art, this year is the same thing. We have a new program. We want to do more with the Asian community. How can we reach out to them? Again, it's always reach out to me or Ashim. It's like, we're the only people. We need more people to be involved in this community. We have our own jobs to work on. I can't believe they're doing this 60 hours per week.
I feel like
this is a
also this
challenge.
is leadership is very important because I do the newspaper for 17 years. For me, I think this is a voice, and I also deliver it to the Pittsburgh. You can see the Pittsburgh, even the McDonald's, they outside they have Chinese words. I believe this is all the leadership. Wherever they put something more than important. Recently, people call because we are paper. They call. They want the mother. It's 80 years old. Either go to interview for the green card. She said, "Can you just bring for the translation?" Because we are really like a kind of like a service. And of course, I gave you the Asian Action Service. But they think, oh, this is you need a leader. Whatever the reason, we really think about it, which is leadership. Like this city, the leadership, it's more important. And they can guide us to do something. Not only they too, for Asian America, right?
Yeah.
Asian town, right?
Asiatown.
Yeah.
Lisa?
Well, in the Asian American community, I think the values are in education and succeeding, and those values are ingrained in people. And I think a lot of the young people, they're so focused on their education or their careers that they don't find that it's important to participate in leadership roles in the community. We would like to see that happen more. We would like to see people get involved within our own community and then also in the greater community, just be out there, because, network, and we need to strengthen that network.
See, that's what, you remember what I came back to, that we need to take ourselves out of our own silos and be out there so that we are seen, we are heard, and sometimes maybe we should build a little notoriety, we should do some foolish things so that they make the news.
No. Still.
Well, harmless.
Asha will be in the news.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I can see that.
I'm aware of that.
Lady in the back there?
Yes, I hope my question isn't too out of place to you as Asian Americans, but on my way here, I was listening to public radio, and there was a story on about possible changes in the immigration system, which would kind of downplay the ability of people to bring relatives from other countries, and would kind of institute some criteria similar to some European countries. I didn't get all the specific details, but it was suggested that this approach would pit different groups who are in the United States who might have people that they like to bring into the country against each other. So I don't know, as people who are part of the Asian American community, and there's so many different entities within that, are there groups that immigration policy might affect more than others, or
Good question.
if you had any about policy changes as it relates to immigration?
Well, there are organizations, for example, we were talking about Asia, Asian Services in Action, which is a social service organization. They try to be part of the conversation about similar rules and all that. And then there are others I know. There is one based in DC or Maryland. It's called SALT, South Asian Leading Together. They are involved in political conversations, why Asians are being sidelined, why they are not being recognized or heard. I think we need to create many such organizations, because it's a large group of people if you're looking at national picture. So I think we need to create a lot more of these organizations and speak in a louder voice. And the other thing is, as I was saying, that there are many who don't even go out to vote. I think we have to encourage and persuade everyone to vote, so that as the leaders realize that there are so many votes out there that can make or break us, they will start paying attention to what is appropriate and beneficial for these communities.
And on the side note of that, there's many organizations in the Asian American community that are going out there and registering people to vote and encouraging to get out the vote, such as Asian Citizens in Action, as well as OCA Greater Cleveland and Westlake Chinese School. We're all part of the ACE network, the Asian Pacific American Civic Engagement Network, to increase voter participation so that we can actually have our numbers, because that's what people are looking at. They only look at the numbers, but we really need everyone's participation, to educate people, to share, how to register, vote. Our organizations are nonpartisan. We can't tell you who to vote for. We can just tell you, we can just help you, get registered, and we can help you find information,
And that's one of the things that concern I have as maybe probably only one of the few people faces you see in AsiaTown, is whenever I tell people to go vote, they ask me who you vote for.
They do.
And I can't tell them, because you don't want to influence them to go vote for the person that you want them to vote for. They had to vote for who they prefer to vote for. And that's kind of a stigma that we have in community living here.
But also, Johnny, again, we go back to the other issue of language barriers. So if many of us are not familiar with any other language besides our own.
Right.
We are not even exposing ourselves to what's going on in our world.
Exactly.
The news, politics, and all of that stuff. So we don't even know who to vote for. Who stands for what? Who should I vote for? So,
Yeah. So that's where education comes in.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a person who you have a family there, your daughter can help you to help you decide who to vote for, or you know, because she can explain to you who are these different candidates, who can work for you, and who's going to be the one that do policy for the Asian American community. So those kind of stuff is very important for us. Education, learning, having more leadership in the community is very big. And unfortunately, like Ashin said earlier, majority of the Indian community do not want to be leaders in political perspective. I myself don't want to be in the political arena because that is a lot of difficulties for seeing people killing each other in a sense, or verbally. And I see that a lot with a lot of friends of mine also. They don't want to be part of political running for office. Sorry, because we just don't feel like that. I don't feel like that environment, even though in our day-to-day life we are getting a lot of politics involved. It happens a lot.
I was just going to say, in regards to the latest immigration news, I think it's still too early to tell. And I think you're talking about the merit-based.
Yeah,
that's a proposal. So I don't think there's any sort of geocentric competition that's going to spawn from this if it even does take hold. But I wouldn't know. It was just popped up today. But yeah.
Any other questions here? Right. So yeah, what?
There's boxes over there.
Yeah, no, I was wondering, looking at that too. I have one question for each one of them. If anybody has no more question, we can conclude it and have some pastry from Cocoa Bakery. So what would be your words, your recommendation or your wise word for anybody who's going to try to come to Cleveland or make an opportunity here in AsiaTown? What would you tell them to make Cleveland a better place for your future generations?
For new visitors coming in?
Anybody who wants to move to Cleveland, or anybody who has future generation want to live here, what would be your advice for them?
I think Cleveland's a great place to live, work, and play. I think they should be open to learning about the community. Ride our free Lolly the Trolley ride during the Asian Festival to learn about the community and see it for yourself. And I mean, and talk to people, find out where they live, you know, where they shop, what's interest to them. And
I think Cleveland is a place of great opportunity right now. I think it's got the right trajectory. It's heading up. You see development all around. And I think anyone who moves here, if they can ingratiate themselves into kind of the DNA of Northeast Ohio, of what this place used to be, what its roots are, what its collective values are as far as hard work, salt of the earth, and then tweak it to their own experience and what they want out of it, be it in the Asian community or anywhere else, regardless of industry. I think Cleveland is ripe with opportunity for anyone who wants to move here, and it's a great place. And the weather isn't as bad as people say.
Yeah, don't be afraid to move to the west side. Yeah, but for people to get involved, I think that's the most important thing, to get involved. And this is a gold mine here. And I think those who can realize that are very fortunate. Count myself as one of those very fortunate people, because it is truly a great place.
Well, I have one child. She's 25 years old. She grew up in Cleveland Heights. She went through the high school period of her life in Cleveland Heights. And then she went to Atlanta to do college. And when she finished college, she was getting job offers. And I said to her, you know, we know a couple of people around town here in Cleveland, and they're in positions of importance. Should we talk to them for a job for you? And she gave me a very short and quick answer. She said, no. So that was my first failure to try and bring somebody back into Cleveland. Okay, so 4 years went by. Then she decided she was going to go to law school. I said, should we look at, Marshall or Case? And again, a real short and quick response, no. So now she is going to law school in DC. But finally, she said, well, maybe after I get my law degree and I've worked for a few years and paid off my student debts, maybe I'll come back to Cleveland. And I said, listen, honey, by that time you'll be about 55 because the paying off education loans takes forever. She said, no, one of the reasons I went to the school that I'm going to, I am optimistic about getting a decent job with a little better money than maybe other locations. So I will pay this off really quick, and then maybe I will come back at some point. So then she turns around and she says, are you speaking on behalf of Global Cleveland? Because I don't know if any of you are familiar with Global Cleveland, but I was a consultant to them for a brief period of time. And the goal was to see what we can do to bring people back into Cleveland, boomerangers. And so she asked me, am I getting paid to talk to her, to bring her back? I said, no, I'm not working for them anymore. They said, well, let me tell you honestly that maybe after I get my degree and I paid off part of my loan, maybe I'll come back here. So I very firmly and strongly believe that the quality of life in Greater Cleveland is still better than so many other places. The cost of living is better than many other places. You can go through downtown Cleveland during rush hour in a breeze. It's no challenge at all. There are so many other things that can attract you. Playhouse Square, it's the second largest theater district next to New York City. There was a time until about 20 years back when if you wanted a certain kind of cuisine, you needed to go to Chicago or New York. Now you will find it in Cleveland. Whatever kind of food you want, it's there in Cleveland. So things have happened, and the amount of construction that is going on, it's really encouraging. The only thing that I'm confused about, I don't know where the jobs are. If all these people are going to move into all these apartments that are being built, how are they going to pay for it? What jobs are they going to get? And I still don't have an answer to that. So perhaps, Dean, you have an answer to that and you can share with us. I don't either.
Yeah, actually, I just think, you all of the talking about the people can come into the Cleveland. I think this is the one thing, the opportunity. If you have the opportunity, you have a job offer, of course they move Cleveland. And since I stay Cleveland, which is the newspaper, but I'm living, now here, and I just wondering, most of the things, how important for the Cleveland, it grows for the house. I believe that like 15 years ago, people buy the house like $50,000. Right now will be double for the cost to buy. But it's the most important, the people how interesting here, I think is marketing. Everything is marketing. We have a wonderful hospital, entertaining, everything. And I believe 1980th century, the Cleveland is a global, the first one, the richest the city here. And I think we need a leadership. I'm not so, just like you mentioned, leadership. Is a leadership how important in the opportunity. This is the two things always. Of course, we need the ability, right, to do something to make it happening. That's what I think. Also, recently, and the main Chinatown, which they call the Davis, they moved.
Oh, the supermarket?
Yeah, they moved, but now I bring the Chinese, which is the investor coming here. They just asking if they can tearing down, can build like a 2 or 3 floor, which is apartment. They like to do that. But things, a lot of things needed to do. I'm not economy person, can help, but that's the reason we really need to kind of set up for some center. You know, you can go someone can give you answer. What is the direction you can go? This is the most important.
All right, again, thank you to college, Levin College and Dean for giving us the opportunity here. Thank you guys for coming to here and listen to us, and thank you all the wonderful panelists member here. And you know, feel free to mingle with all of us and have some cocoa bakeries and enjoy.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.